Hello users and welcome back to Above It All. This is the series in which I talk about politics and tell you what I think. So the question at hand for this video is, what does it mean when Bernie Sanders calls Joe Biden a decent man? So I want to play this little flashback here. It pains me to watch this, and I know it pains all of you to watch this as well. But I want to play this flashback because this is when Bernie endorsed Hillary. So I just want to play this for contrast.
And women and African Americans and our veterans, Hillary Clinton understands that our diversity is one of our greatest strengths. Hillary Clinton will make an outstanding president, and I am proud to stand with her today.
Okay, so that's, there was, at the very least, feigned enthusiasm. Now you can say maybe this will come later. This will maybe come later, maybe you can say that this was right before the convention. Who knows if Bernie's going to do something similar for Biden? I don't know. But what I do know is that Bernie Sanders, it's cringy when he says that Joe Biden's his friend. It's cringy when he calls him a decent man. But really, when you compare this, when you compare Hillary Clinton will make an outstanding president to Joe Biden's a decent man, I mean, you can't help but make that comparison. I mean, at least the first thing I thought when I saw the concession speech was, yeah, it's cringy. But the second thing I thought after thinking about it and watching it again was it's like he said he's going to continue to rack up delegates and he just is suspending the campaign because then there's no point in taking donations and spending people's money if he can't win, and that's what he feels. But there was no full-throated endorsement of Joe Biden. And again, it's only April. Who knows what will happen soon? Anything can happen, and this might just be bunk, but I'm just throwing something out there. I do think Bernie will probably do a full-throated endorsement of Biden, but I do think it's interesting that there is very palpable hesitation for that, because again, we live in an uncertain period in history. Nobody knows what the hell's happening, right? Nobody. Anyone who's going to tell you what they know, like what's going to happen in 6 months, they're lying to you. What's going to happen in 3 months, nobody fucking knows. Nobody. And so, again, it's totally possible. You can have conversations about what's likely. I think Bernie will do something similar for Joe Biden, but again, I think it's interesting that he hesitates to do that now and just calls him a decent man, because the Democrats want him to fall in line. They want you and me to fall in line, and Bernie is not doing that. It's very clear. Joe Biden did this whole concession thing. It's like, we'll lower Medicare to 60. Oh, Bernie, thank you for this brilliant idea. Stupid shit. And yeah, sure, that's better than what we have now. Can't deny it. But it's still garbage, and it's not anywhere close to Medicare for all. And so, again, I find it super intriguing. I want to just flip the coin here, right? People love to harp on calling Joe Biden a decent man, but when you compare that to what he said about Hillary Clinton during this round, during the general election of 2016, it's one of those things where, again, you can criticize him for saying anything nice, but I do think that this is one of those situations where Bernie is telling us how he feels without telling us how he feels. And I think that's valuable to understand. Yeah, Joe Biden's a terrible guy. Joe Biden is just, dumpster fire. He is worse than Hillary Clinton in almost, if not every single fashion. Hillary Clinton's got a more robust genocide record as being Secretary of State, but at the same time, Joe Biden was there as well. He was the vice president, so I mean, he's slightly less to blame, but also still in the list of people to blame. So it's one of those things where just Joe Biden's just an objectively worse candidate, though, on almost every issue. The enthusiasm, where like, if you listen to this screeching here,
And women,
right?
Clinton is one.
Like,
Hillary Clinton
there's a
will
lot of
make
clapping
an
and
outstanding
screaming.
president, and I am proud to stand with her today.
Oh, they cut it out. There's a lot. Just, I'm not going to subject this to you. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of clapping in here, and there's not that much for Joe Biden. Now, again, we're only going off of before he became the presumptive nominee because there hasn't been a rally in a while. But the enthusiasm, the ABC poll that came out a few weeks ago shows that the enthusiasm for Joe Biden is significantly less than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had like a cohort of young resistance feminist liberals that were like, a woman! A woman! Oh! And it's like, that doesn't exist anymore. So it's like, Joe Biden's got no chance. Obviously, we know that. But I do think, I just want to, this is a small observation here, but I just do want to compare and contrast Bernie Sanders endorsing Hillary to Bernie at least conceding defeat to Joe Biden. He didn't endorse Joe Biden, which again is another important factor here. And it's just super interesting. It's just one of those things a lot of people love to, this is the time where people that are angry love to just direct their anger at Bernard. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play that game. Do I think he should have been tougher? Totally. Do I think he could have been tougher without, being rude or mean or obnoxious? Definitely. But at the same time, he's just a nice old man. And we knew that going in. We knew that in 2016. We've known that forever. So it's one of those things where it's not surprising. A lot of people would say, they blame him and they say that he's a terrible candidate because of that. But I mean, that's just a waste of our time. Bernie Sanders is a historical figure. Like I said, I'm only 23. I'm going to remember Bernie for the rest of my life. And I'm sure anyone in my situation will probably agree. They'll probably, he's without a doubt one of the most important historical figures that will be taught about, assuming that there's not a mass extinction of some kind, that will be taught about in the history books. And so that's kind of the grieving that I'm going through, if you want to use that word. And I just want to show you that this is not the same situation, at least not yet. At least not yet. And again, I've said this before, having conversations about what you're going to do in November, in April, is kind of silly. This is the time for using our leverage. The convention has yet to happen. The platform is yet to be drafted. We still have a lot of leverage. Still vote for Bernie. Tell people you will not vote for Joe Biden, even if you will vote for Joe Biden. For me, I honestly don't know. I don't know who I'll vote for. I have no idea. But I'm going to tell people I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. Why? Because that makes them want to work for it. It either makes them act like a smug piece of garbage, or it will convince them to work for the votes. And that's what you have to understand, is you don't just tell people, you don't concede and go like, yeah, I'll do everything you want me to immediately, because that's how that's how they know that they have power still. You want to basically leverage your influence up until the very last moment. And again, if you don't choose to vote for Joe Biden, I mean, we'll have that conversation in November if you're still here. But I mean, at this point, I think it's useless to say that, like, yeah, Joe Biden's better than Trump. Like, okay, duh. Like, hello? Like, that's not an observation, I'm sorry. Like, at least in 2016, you had the Trump as a wild card factor to go off of. Like, you had this whole, oh, who knows what Trump could do? We know that Hillary's a war hawk criminal, but who knows what Trump would do? He said so many different things. That's not a factor anymore. That was like the only factor that I even remotely took seriously for people that said they wanted to vote for Trump over Hillary. And it's just, that doesn't exist anymore. So, like, again, it's anyone with two eyes and a brain understands that Joe Biden will be a better president than Donald Trump's second term would be. But that's not the point. That has no bearing on the analysis of using your influence and what little power you have to see what you can do. And I'm just gonna say, like, Bernie Sanders he may have dropped out, but he's not disappearing from the planet. There will be more points where he's going to exercise his leverage, and it's why it's still important to vote for him. If you vote for him, that makes him more powerful at the convention. That makes him get more done, and that's what you have to think about. Um, I'm just throwing this out here, food for thought, kind of a miscellaneous, as well as miscellaneous. I like mispronouncing that word, but it really offends me when people mispronounce it, so that's why I like doing it. But then I feel like if I do it, I have to stipulate that I'm doing it as a joke, because it offends me to such an extreme degree that I don't want to, like, inflict that offense upon other people. But anyway, this is a little miscellaneous video. Let me know what you think. Will Bernie do a full-throated endorsement of Joe Biden? Probably. But it's interesting to note that that did not happen right now. Like, that did not happen. Bernie said that if he's not the nominee, he will support the nominee with all of his strength. And he's conceded that he will not be the nominee, but he has yet to support the nominee with his full strength. So, look at Andrew Yang, for example, and I like picking on Andrew Yang, or Tulsi Gabbard. They had no progressive bona fides. They had no understanding of power, influence, anything whatsoever. Andrew Yang had a sizable online movement that followed him at one point. I know a lot of them have gone now because he's a sellout piece of garbage, but I know he does now at this point have like a cult following, like Rachel Maddow. But he was at a point where he could have like he said, "Oh, someone has to endorse UBI for me to endorse them, or become the nominee," and then he endorsed Biden before either of those two things happened, which again proves that he has no spine. Do you think the pressure on Bernie is? Like, what do you think the pressure on Bernie is to get in line, do a full-throated endorsement, and campaign for Biden? It's immense. There's a planet out there in the galaxy. I don't even know, in the universe. I suggest Googling this, right? There is what's called Ice 7, which is ice not formed by temperature, but by sheer pressure. There is a giant planet with water on it that is so large that inside the core of the planet is theorized to be composed of Ice 7 because of the large mass of the planet and there being so much water. The water closest to the core of that planet has been pressurized so much so, not by temperature, but just by sheer water pressure, that it becomes a solid in the form of Ice 7. Google that, look on Wikipedia. There's 2 known planets that have this potential on it that I know of, when I did this whole thing a few years ago. And that's the analogy I want to use for Bernie Sanders, is he's Ice 7 right now as far as the pressure to do what he's doing in this clip here for Joe Biden, and he's not doing it yet. And I think that's something to at least pay attention to. So if you're one of those guys that's like, "Oh, Bernie's spineless, he's weak, and he's done nothing," I mean, I get you, I hear you, I understand your anger, but come on, man. Come on, man. It's just, come on. Come on. We can have our criticisms without calling people garbage. There are similar people saying Martin Luther King, "Oh, you should have just been violent. Why are you so peaceful? You fucking spineless piece of garbage." I've read those contemporaneous reports, and it's like, I get it. I get the anger and I get the frustration, but I think it's just poorly directed. I'd say in this moment, use all what little power and leverage you have to go after Biden. Because, again, if Biden wants our vote, he's going to have to extend anything, literally anything, for it. Just one thing. If you promise Medicare for all, you got me. If you say $20 minimum wage, you got me. Any one of these issues, and I'll suck it up and I'll vote for you. But until that happens, you have to exercise all the power you can, and you have to make Joe Biden and the establishment feel that they will lose without you. And I think that's doable. I think it's totally doable. But it's just one of those things where, I don't know, I try to have a positive mindset. I've been a negative person in the past. It's not fun being negative. I try to be positive. So, again, a little rambly here. But let me know what you think. So, thank you for watching, and y'all have a decent day.